It's match week. Once again, Phoenix Rising has a new signing, and club president Bobby Dulle has some new comments. Find all that and more on another episode of the PHNX Rising podcast. One day I will get the humming of this video right. Welcome into the PHNX Rising podcast. We are coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Go on in and get a nice, delicious Polar Pop for 79 cents. Save 10 cents, making it 69 cents. If you are in the Inner Circle program, appreciate everyone joining us here tonight. I am Max Simpson. I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Owain, the Oracle Evans. How we doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's a Tuesday, and we got another game coming up this weekend, haven't we?
You're darn right. Indeed. We sure do. We sure do. Absolutely, right? We got to, it's always kind of weird kind of getting back into it where we're not dissecting a game further, but hey, there's no shortage of things to talk about, right? To leave a like on your way in here. Absolutely. Look at the screen. Look at what Siley has to say. I think you like this video. They will come on quicker. Absolutely. We got Fat Kid in the chat.
It's not quite how it works, but you can try it. You can try it.
Tell them that it works
Do
that
hit the
way.
like button.
It does work that way. Yes. Reese in the chat. Fat Kid in the chat. Devon in the chat. He's saying the D-backs one, which is fair. Owen is wearing a PHNX D-back shirt. We love that. Make sure I'm wearing the PHNX Sun Devil shirt. Make sure to get your merch in phnxlocker.com, of course. But all right, we got some stuff to talk about. And, here's the thing. It never seems to be a dull week for Phoenix Rising. Sometimes the news is good. Sometimes the news is maybe not as good. But there is always something, and we do have a new signing. Jearl Margaritha in the house for Phoenix Rising, right? Got some stats we'll run through, but Owen, really just the profile of this player and hearing how he's been described by the club in their official statement. I mean, what do we kind of make of this new signing?
Yeah, different player, definitely, just in terms of, what he brings there in terms of he's a winger, right? Someone who we've kind of seen this change in tactics in recent weeks from Diego, and of course we all know that there's going to be a change in tactics overall from Diego, as you'd expect relative to what Danny Stone's doing. Margaritha brings in different options, different kind of ideas that he can put into practice on the field. My biggest concern here, more than anything, though, is that, of course, he's been out of practice recently. This is a guy who hasn't played a whole lot of club games recently. Obviously, Rising has 12 games to go, so he's got to kind of hit that ground running. He doesn't have a whole lot of runway up until you've got to be getting the best out of him, as we've been saying, of course, about Thomas Angel as well, because it's just going to be a difficult one overall to get those guys in, get them just acclimatized to what this group has to do in such a short period of time. But, funnily enough, as Fat Kid says there, Max is buying margaritas. It's not the first time we've actually had that come up.
That's actually very true. This is probably the more appropriate one.
Okay, yeah. Here's what. Can we make a deal here, Max?
No.
Can we make it? Hang on.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Hang on. Yes, as well to Gullyman Pat's thing, visa clearance. Of course, the club statement previously was that it's reliant on his P1 visa coming through. I don't know if that's through yet or not. Obviously, that is a step that has to be crossed. It's a bridge you have to cross in order to get them out on the field in a competitive match. We will see. Last game he played was June 8th. Devon brings up correctly. Yes, for Curaçao. The last club game he played, I believe, was in April.
He's only played a full, according to Stat Like Reese, he's only played a full 90 minutes 3 times since last June. And yes, all of the matches were for Curaçao.
Yeah. So, okay, all of those things come in here. Now, Max buying margaritas, I will say this. I reckon if Jearl can score on his debut, I think Max should buy happy hour margaritas at Illegal Pete's.
You love.
I think you should.
You love doing this where you have zero stake in the game.
Brought it up.
You have zero.
I didn't originate
no, but
this.
see, no one else is bringing this up. You're doing this because listen. I would buy if you end up matching me. Oh, wow! It's time for you to spend some money and just say Owen's buying margaritas.
Well, you know,
wow. Let me weasel my way out of this.
I think it's Max is buying margaritas.
Now,
see,
literally, chat. We're trying to give you not one but two margaritas if he scores, and Owen is depriving you of that. So everyone, blame Owen. Here we go.
I don't know about that.
See, exactly. We move on because Owen's a cheapskate. But you're looking at his matches, right? In 23 appearances, 1 goal and 1 assist throughout the 2023-2024 season. You look at his crossing accuracy.
People are in, by the way. People are in. I'm sorry in the chat.
It's fine. Joe Lowry in the chat. Time to deliver
Joe,
Owen. Give the people what they want.
You do it.
See,
you
he's
do
passing
it. Fuck
off.
it. I don't like it.
I'm the dad in this situation.
Are you sure about that, Max?
Let's just point that out. Yes. But
okay.
All right. So you look at the 2023-2024 season. Again, 23 appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist. About just shy of 50% crossing accuracy. Now, listen, it is a bit of a smaller sample size, right? And also, you kind of go off the fact it's a different league, but higher than any Rising player with a minimum of 5 crosses who's on the current Phoenix Rising roster. 62.5% long ball accuracy. Only Emi Quajo and Remzo Zambrano have a higher success rate. Again, listen, whenever you're coming from a different league or really any different level of playing, there's going to be an adjustment period. There is going to be, right, you're not necessarily going to get the same performance hitting the ground running. However, while it is possible, you do hope for the same profile of player to transition over. And even just going off of that stats, I think it just gives you a bit more clinicalness in the passing attack than what we have seen from Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising, they traditionally, right throughout this season, they have a bit of trouble at times, finding that final ball and or really unlocking a defense with that pinpoint pass. Could he be the guy to do it? We will have to see, but we do at least like the profile.
Yeah, and again, it's I think based on how well he's done in the Dutch second division, right, that he's going to have some talent there. You don't score the number of goals that he did as a winger. And again, just to clarify on this one, because I know some things the club put out was saying about how, obviously he'd played in the first division. He hasn't played in the first division there. He has not played in the Eredivisie, so we can't draw that kind of line in there. He was in the second tier. He was in the youth setups. And again, he did well in the second tier there. He goes over to the Azeri League, right, and playing in Azerbaijan. Difficult season for him overall, I think.
Yeah.
Safe to say, in terms of the final output there, didn't get very much. What was it? 1 goal in all comps, 1 assist in all comps.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, it can be an adjustment. I'm sure it is. Azerbaijan is a very, very different country even to USL, I think, in terms of what you're dealing with. And he wasn't playing with, while they were a team that were in the Europa Conference League, we've also got to remember he wasn't exactly playing for one of the biggest heavy hitters in the league. So, yeah, again, it's an interesting signing. I think it makes sense given the context of knowing that Diego wants to play things a little bit differently here, and he gives you different looks that maybe you wouldn't have gotten if you're forced to rely on people like an Edgardo Rito, people like Juan Carlos Azacar, to fill in as the wingers, when in reality they're more like wing backs, I think, by nature.
Yep.
But it's at the same time, it's that match fitness or match sharpness more is where I'd kind of highlight the slight bit of concern there. I know that, again, look, Bobby Dulle will tell you this team, as you're looking at these acquisitions that they're making, this isn't the kind of move that is, thinking just for next season. They expect and hope for these guys to contribute, and they expect for them to join in and get things done. But again, it's just how much time will it take him to get himself fully adjusted, fully settled in? Because you have the adjustment anyway of bringing a new player in and getting used to new teammates and getting used to new coaches and new styles of play. And the fact that it is very, very hot here in Phoenix, I'm sure, is also something that tends to take a little bit of adjustment in there. However, you don't have that much time. at this point to get all of that adjustment in and get all of that stuff in as quickly as you'd like it to. So I'm not sure. I think we'll see over the coming weeks quite what you're able to accomplish with him out there. And of course, he's not expected to be the only signing this week either.
It's true. I mean, listen, I think this is kind of the point where Phoenix Rising is at, is you're not going to fault them for signings at this point of the season. It then just does become a question. Are you able to hit the ground running, and are you able to get results in a quick enough manner? I mean, listen, the fact is, as we detailed a lot last week, when you're kind of looking at how Phoenix Rising has gone this season compared to other seasons, and really just what lies ahead of them, not only ahead of them of who they have to play, but also as they're looking up above the table, who, kind of factors into there. They have time. There is time. But the thing is, every match that you play, you're just kind of losing track, not only on the number of points that you're able to gain in, but also the bigger thing that we detailed. So many of those matches are matches against teams that are right above you. So even in theory, you have matches to turn it around. You can't afford to drop points here, because then after a while, you're kind of looking, you're like, oh, great. We're in a pretty deep hole, because as we'll get into later, listen, this club has playoff aspirations, but you need to be above the line to make that happen.
You do. Just to address the thing that's going on in the chat at the minute between Devon and Kevin, he is a winger. I know that people tend to kind of blur that line a little bit recently. I think the word forward is coming out a lot more, and a lot of people kind of use that. But the reality is he is a wide player that plays in attacking positions. He is a winger. He's not a striker in the sense of a number 9 like Thomas Angel is coming in. He is a number 9.
Yep.
This guy is a winger.
Absolutely.
Margaritha is a winger.
Even though he is in a way listed as a forward in the very first line in big bold on the club's
I don't
release.
Think it's big bold. It's like 3-4 times the size.
Margaritha, who plays primarily as an attacking winger, joins Phoenix Rising on a multi-year deal.
Yeah, and that's what I'd expect him to be in this case. Again, it matches up with what Diego wants to do. It makes sense.
Especially the crossing ability in the final third, everything like that.
This is someone that we were being sold on the idea. I think that there were wingers coming in prior to this happening. Again, there is another signing expected later this week. That was revealed publicly, although again we've kind of already hinted at this, and there's been coverage elsewhere that this was likely to come, and it was confirmed on USL All Access today. Rising Club President Bobby Dulle brought that up. So we know there's another signing coming later in the week. We expect it to be a winger again. And overall, just it steps towards a side that's probably reflecting more closely, I think, what Diego wants to get done. Again, the only question you really have, it's not necessarily, is this guy probably a decent enough signing? Because I think, yes, likely yes. The issue that you have, the only issue you have is, are these signings coming too late in the season to make the difference that you want? Should we bring up Fat Kid's comment there? It kind of blurs into something else later on, so maybe we leave it for now.
Sure.
We can come back to that, I think, Fat Kid.
Yeah, all we'll say is, exactly. We'll get into this, but even though there is the interim label still applied, what we'll allude to after, dissecting Bobby Dulle's comments is there's a bit less of waiting in the wings, perhaps, at least in regards to this season. But we'll chat through that on the other side of the break. But of course, before then, we got to tell you guys about our friends over at Circle K. Circle K, we are in Studio K. Of course, you can get a 79-cent Polar Pop. And you know what happens when we do Circle K reads on this show, don't we, Producer Kyle? That's right. He's getting in position.
Max is going to try and catch something with his mouth. Again.
Usually it works.
He does this every time.
The Kyle connection has been pretty on point.
If you don't watch this usually, and you don't know
if you hear
that this
audible
is coming,
silence for like 4 seconds,
it's gonna happen because Max is about to just open his mouth and try and catch. What is that? Is that another of the sour wiggly worms? They are good. It's the last one of the pack. We may have to.
Let's make it count.
We got a load of packs back there. Maybe we'll go in a bit. But let's have a look.
Can you do it?
Owen. Can you do it?
Go. Oh, whoa! Kyle thought it was
the answer.
Now, a little bit taller than I am.
Yeah, Max is not 7 foot tall.
That's okay.
Was that accurate then?
What?
Was that accurate or did he miss?
I can't tell. That's okay.
Reese, did he get it? He missed. He missed. Okay.
Well, that makes 2 of us. That is okay. Check out our friends over at Circle K.
It's disappointing.
Again,
It's a wasted one.
79-cent Polar Pops, 69 cents. If you are Inner Circle members, they got the snacks. Owen's opening his own bag of Wrigley worms.
Mr. Simpson, would you like one?
Yeah, sure.
Go on. You missed your chance there.
Oh, man. Here we go. Yeah, check it out, friends. Check it out, friends at Circle K. And their Inner Circle program, save 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. All that great stuff there. At participating locations, see store locations for details. All right.
Max, I'm not about to do this. You promised this, okay, before that you had some cards that you might give away to people if they track you down at the stadium.
Yeah, no one did.
I thought that was for the next game.
Did I say that?
Yeah,
No.
because you said it last week. Well, they haven't had a game since then.
Yeah, but what's the secret code word we need to do?
I don't know. What code word do you want it to be? You can make one up now.
You know what I'll do? Dropping it in Discord. Drop it in Discord. There you go. Diehards only, baby.
Ooh.
Let's go. Don't share it if you're not a diehard.
I can't believe it's going to get leaked.
No, it won't get leaked. I trust our diehards more than I trust you. And that ain't saying much, but right, what I do trust that you provide is you did have a chance. We both did, but you listening live to Bobby Dulle's appearance day. You want to elaborate a bit further?
Yeah, Bobby on with a good 25-ish minute interview with USL All Access on SiriusXM, of course, with Mike Watts, Devon Kerr. We had to listen through it, so you can choose to, but don't necessarily have to pick out some of the most critical parts as we go through this. But I think we should probably start with just it was what Bobby said about Diego.
I switched it up on you.
Gomez.
I switched it up on you actually. So
why is he swapping this around?
Because it leads into a better. Come on.
Okay, fair enough.
So we'll actually start with Bobby, was talking through. Does he have any regrets on how the season started? Right. Again, it was a slower start.
And it was again to contextualize it. To contextualize it, it was very specifically kind of regrets in terms of, do you regret how the first 2/3 of the season have gone, or is it just more kind of that you are a victim of circumstance with people leaving late and moving on to bigger and better things?
Yep.
And here's what Bobby had to say. We'll read it out. I have no regrets. To me, I know us as an organization. I know that we've had a plan. We've had a process. We've gone about things the right way. Obviously, sports is sports. It's the best reality television out there. You can't predict what's happening. You can't predict that you're going to win 20 games in a row like we did in 2019. For us, I'm confident the decisions that we made. I'm confident in how we built this roster going into the season alongside Owain and the profiles that fit his game model. Now, of course, then he goes on from there. He speaks a lot about, not getting in people's way as they move on, about obviously Juan leaves early doors. I find it a slightly strange answer, but I'm going to let you go with this one first.
Well, I think how he contextualized it and how you can read it from the quote is he has no regrets based on the timing or lack thereof of what things happen. Again, we even noted that when everything was happening, it was inopportune timing for the club. And right, I mean, Bobby Dulle said as much, that he's not going to stand in Juan's way of going on to bigger and better things for, to be assistant coach at MLS club. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And again, as we mentioned, hiring Danny Stone, regardless of when this happened in the process, we thought was a good pick. So I think his answer in what he says is right. You can't predict what happens. Built the roster with Juan Guerra in mind, everything like that. Like, I actually don't have a qualm with that because I don't believe he's wrong. What I do think people can find umbrage with, perhaps, is you felt confident in the roster and where it was. And I think that's maybe the key distinction of, listen, you can fit everything you want for if Juan Guerra is the coach, he leaves last minute. Okay, like that's going to happen. That's a tough adjustment. But even if he was, to feel comfortable, again, as we've said, with the incredible abundance of a talent that's left, does Juan Guerra shape the talent that's left over in a different way? Perhaps. But from what we've seen and just like the number of goals that not only you have to replace, but how all of those guys are still crushing it where they're at and as they should be, it's just tough to justify that part of it for me.
Yeah, there's a few parts to this to kind of react to. One part of it I'll say on this one when he brings up the fact that, the timing wasn't great for us once again, but it wasn't something that we as an organization were going to stand in the way of. And now, of course, look, I think we've already discussed this in the past, but obviously there was a period after we even reported on the fact there was interest from Houston that the deal almost fell through, to our knowledge. That obviously there were discussions over things like compensation and all of that. And
Sure.
Okay, so there is a business element to this. There always is as well. And again, it's right that you don't stand in people's way. I'm never going to argue that one. We've seen with guys like Phil Goodrum what happened at Memphis when that club stood in his way of moving on. And it just doesn't create a good atmosphere from there. It doesn't create a culture.
It gives you a reputation, too.
Gives you a reputation as well, whereby guys who want to, I mean, again, and this is something that Bobby brings up in that same answer later on, that when they signed Carlos Harvey by transfer from LA Galaxy, they kind of say to him that they understand that, he's going to come into Phoenix Rising. They're going to get him back into the Panamanian national team, and they're going to get him off back up to MLS. And there's a real positive in being a club that's known for being able to do those things. But here's the other bit of context I'll provide to this one. When Juan Guerra left, and it wasn't good timing, completely understand that, who leaves after that point? It's Carlos Harvey. But Danny Trejo, realistically, was on a 1-year contract. You knew he was going to go.
He was on to bigger and better things.
He was always on to bigger and better things. I don't think any of us are surprised at that one.
Sure.
And Manuel Arteaga is already well gone.
Yep.
For other reasons, rightly, wrongly, whatever. Again, not going to judge on that one at this point. But you knew that those players were gone. And so, at the point when Juan Guerra leaves, what has ultimately been a huge part of the discussion that we've had, a huge part of the discussion the fans, I think, consistently bring up, was already known at that point.
Yep.
You were lacking the firepower in the attack. Now, Carlos Harvey makes a difference because, again, the midfield as well has had its moments whereby you kind of need that engine in the midfield to even kickstart things to get it up to that point. But there were still holes in that squad. And so, again, where I almost find it a bit strange at this point is that, again, yes, you want to give other players opportunities.
Yeah.
But you can't simultaneously say that you're going to take accountability, but you're not going to have regrets for how things went. Because either then what you're doing is you're either shoveling blame off onto players who just underperformed, or your own analysis of the situation was lacking. And, it happens. I'm not going to pretend like this it inherently has to be fatal.
Sure.
But you should still acknowledge that, right? Like, it was pretty... I mean, this you can talk about reality television all you like. This has been brought up in our chat. Everyone was kind of talking about this. The fact that going into the season, this team had flaws. 2022 felt like it came out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
By and large. I don't think we were expecting that going in. I don't think any of us expected the season to go the way that it did. That was reality TV in a weird twist. The issues that came up this season, there were enough people, I think, that were honestly concerned going into the season, and now those concerns have played out, that to act as though you can't have regrets because it was some shock is disingenuous. I feel as though, again, look, we're not saying, I think, on here that this inherently has to be fatal. But you can't look back at the start of the season and say you don't have regrets about maybe not bringing in an extra striker or not bringing in a slightly different option in midfield, right? All of these things could have and plausibly should have happened and could have made a big difference this season.
Agreed. And even if you feel confident in who you have, right, which I know, Bobby, Brandon, they've gone on record saying that even, from a starting aspect, if you feel good about what you have, which there's, a lot of disagreement amongst the fan base and others, to that statement, even just from a depth perspective, again, like that's what we've said, like you can't live in a perfect world knowing that right? Last year, there were injuries, right? Maybe not to some of the most marquee players, but this year there have been. And just where's the depth behind that? So that's kind of where we're at. But, right,
and one more thing. Sorry on that one.
Yeah.
The thing about regrets there and not having regrets, there's no shame necessarily in getting something wrong.
Sure.
And when you get something wrong, you should probably regret getting it wrong. I don't think we can have this discussion as though the jury is still out on whether they got it wrong. You are in 10th. You will always say publicly that you have this big ambition and that you'll work hard and you do this and that and all these really positive things. And you're pushing for this club to be up there because that's where the expectation is. It's where the club has set the expectations itself over the many years. You can't look at this team right now and say that what you chose to do at the start of the season worked. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
That's fair.
Okay, and to say you don't have regrets about failure, it's not a devastating regret. It doesn't have to be a fatal flaw kind of thing.
Yep.
But you can't say that you look back on failure and don't regret changes that you could have made.
Sure, that's totally fair. Do you go in the chat? I regret 21 goals in 22 games. Goalie man Pat, 2019 was 5 years ago. What about the last 3 years? It's kind of how it's felt. Again,
I'll give you context here. If you look at the last 2 seasons since Brandon McCarthy's become sporting director, the club is exactly 500 in the regular season. It has 18 wins, 18 losses, and 20 draws.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So that's from the start of 23 until now.
Make sure
18 wins, 18 draws, 18 wins, 18 losses, 20 draws.
There you go. Make sure to hit that like button again. The dislikes help hurt our algorithm, so please change that. But yes. Also, right. I mean, we're trying to right the ship, as they say. So Bobby Dulle was asked what that looks like, especially moving forward for this season. He was asked more specifically, right? Knowing that parted ways with head coach Danny Stone and that Diego is now kind of in that interim role. Well, here's what Bobby had to say regarding whether, Diego's positioning. And he says right now, Diego's the interim through the end of the year. We're not going to bring in another coach, barring something completely unexpected to run the team. It's Diego's job right now through the end of the season. Diego's a candidate to be named the permanent head coach. We have other candidates that we've also talked to. There's a lot of conversations taking place, but Diego's got a real opportunity. And listen, man, I mean, people have differing opinions on him. Some people say give them a chance to run through the season. Some people say, he should not be considered for the interim. Take of it what you will. This is my general philosophy of how this has played out, right? And I think to some, the more you read into it, this maybe isn't a shock given where we're at in the point of the season. If you were going to make a change and he was not going to be the interim for the rest of the season, I believe you would have done this within the first few weeks. At this point, the fact that the club, he's putting it out there, he's going to be an interim for the rest of the season, I actually think that's a good move to where at least you're clearing up the doubt of anything like that. Publicly, it allows you to say, hey, we're focused on this season. We're not going to have another change. And you go forward with him. Regardless of what that looks like into the offseason and into 2025, I believe that's the best move. And the fact that that's now out there, good. This situation should have either been cleared up and changed a month ago or this, maybe announced it earlier. But the fact that they've at least come out and said it, I think it allows you to rally the team even further in one direction and go from there. There then is a separate conversation of, right, he's saying he's a legit candidate going into the next season. He's got a real opportunity. That's a separate conversation, but at least for having him cleared as the interim through the season, I think that can only help you as a club.
No, I understand that. I will add the context here that the team has, by and large, performed worse statistically, fallen in the table since Diego Gomez. They've gotten 5 points out of 5. They have in total 26 out of 22.
Sure.
So on a points per game basis, they were doing better before. That includes the fact that they faced over that stretch of time 3 teams that are not in playoff positions, including they've got another one coming up in the next game. They were in a playoff position at the point when Diego Gomez took over. They are no longer in a playoff position.
Yep.
Now, again, They are, I mean, in terms of coaching candidates, Joe bringing up there, it's a complex one, not least because the very nature of USL Championship, a lot of guys who maybe weren't head coaches previously get given opportunities to step up and fill in those kind of roles. And a lot of them have had success at this level. It is that kind of a level where someone gets given their first full crack at the top job. And so that's why it's hard when you get a question like that to say, who are the coaching candidates that you'd be interested for? I know it's a cop-out answer, but I'm going to give that. Obviously, there are going to be big name coaches from within USL, will be people linked with this job, because it is, regardless of how the club is doing at any given time, it is a big club in the sense of most people do look at them as one of the bigger clubs in USL Championship from the outside.
Sure. I mean, I see goalie man Pat's comments, signing players to fit Diego to multi-year contracts, reading into that what you want.
The one thing I'll say here.
Yeah.
Bobby has accepted that coaches have different philosophies. He says this, right? He said it in the interview today. That obviously Juan didn't play the exact same way that Danny did, who doesn't play the exact same way that Diego did.
Who didn't play the same way that Rick did.
No, and they didn't. No, exactly. Yeah. And you wouldn't expect them to. Going in now and making splashes on knowing that Juan didn't use wingers, Danny didn't use wingers, Diego wants to use wingers, and so now you're going out and signing wingers to permanent contracts, multi-year deals. I'm intrigued about that. I don't know if it's always the best business to do. It assumes a degree of continuity that you can't guarantee. Are they to address a massive hole in the squad, Joe? Well, again, neither of the prior two coaches necessarily played with them. And you don't know yet. If we don't know who the next coach is, you could be in a case whereby you're signing someone to a permanent deal now to play for this club for 2 months, and then a new coach comes in and says, I don't really want players of that profile.
Sure.
Okay, the number 9 is a very different thing. This club needed more of a 9 there. He also came in on loan. That's a critical part there with Thomas Angel. He's a loan signing. His position, now obviously you weren't going to get him on a permanent deal, I don't think. It's kind of the more than fair to say.
I've also want to say
he was expecting to be playing at a higher level.
I also want to say for the record, I have removed myself from any possible consideration or speculation.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that ever. But obviously he fills a role in there that this team needed now, and realistically will need going forward. You're only able to get him on loan, so that's what you go with. Sure. They were in for someone else. That deal fell through. But at the end of the day, though, when you look at bringing in those kind of players who, again, just is you're thinking about these are definitely a different style of player. Is that limiting you now towards kind of coaches who'll play with that?
Sure.
I know the whole idea behind having a sporting director and the things that Brandon has said in the past on this particular topic has been a focusing continuity between coaches more so.
Sure.
But again, what does it mean then if you have a coach that wants to come in, that's coming in next year and doesn't necessarily want those kind of players?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would say this, that like, listen, this very well could be right if you are signing players that fit more of the profile that Diego is looking for. That is a fact. You are signing them to multi-year deals. That is a fact, or at least in this last signings case, right? Those two things are true. You could go down the rabbit hole that, okay, this is teeing up for Diego to be more in consideration for the long-term possibility. Is that a fair assumption to make, especially, again, given that this is not a secret that Bobby, again, has come out today, that he's been saying all along with the consistent message that he is a real consistent candidate. The fact that they are mentioning and they're saying publicly that he is going to be the interim for the rest of the season, that even more solidifies that. It is possible that they are teeing it up for he could be the coach long-term. I would also say, to play devil's advocate, that while that very well, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, what I could also be seeing is perhaps they're looking to go for a different profile than what we've seen in the last couple of years. Again, we have seen success, Juan Guerrero leading this team to a championship. We have seen Danny Stone, again, you mentioned it, earlier returns for the season were better than when they have been since Diego took over. Perhaps whether they go with Diego or not, though, the devil's advocate I play is this offense has been sputtering. And while they are looking to return to the glory days of old, and I'm not going to say they're going to get there, you're not going to get me on record saying that. I think perhaps if you're looking for something that is a different than what has been in the last 2 years, which has mainly been quite a stagnant attack, at least getting in different profiles of players forces you to not only go after a different profile of a coach, but also to shift your thinking into something that, we'll call it what it is, even if you are not looking for, you're looking for continuity from manager to manager. What has been working from an offensive standpoint has not really been doing it over the long haul the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. I was going to actually say that from my devil's advocate on this one, was going to be that while we can have the discussion about in the pure sense of it, would you, all else held constant, decide to go for permanent signings when you've got an interim coach? And you'd say probably not.
That's fair.
We don't know what the difference in availability and difference in talent on the market is between the permanent market and the loan market right now. And if this club is serious about turning things around this season, and there were very limited options on the loan market, remember who's come in, Damien Barker-John, who fills somewhat of a role on the team, but isn't necessarily the world beater that I think this club probably needs to turn things around, even if he can play a role as a squad player. If that's the kind of player that's available on the loan market versus people who you could bring in permanently, but maybe substantially better, I can understand why the club would make the decision to go towards the permanent market then and bring in permanent signings. If in their mind, what they're bringing in is someone that's likely to better contribute this season to turning things around. Now then, of course, the question becomes, are you prioritizing this season over the future? But no one is asking this club, I think, to give up on this season, even if you feel as though the likelihood of chasing down a title is probably very slim at this point. But the idea there, the playoffs are still in touching distance. You can plausibly get in, maybe win a game or two. I don't think the 6th place finish, and again, I've said this before, I'll kind of say it again because I know it's something that came up again in that interview with Bobby today about how, kind of sometimes the attitude that people take is that they look at Rising's run last season and think, well, there you go, it's the evidence, you can get in. You've got to think bigger than that, and the bigger than that is the fact that this club needs to host playoff games. It's a financial thing at this point as well, quite frankly. Think about it. If you sell a stadium out 10,000 people, so you got an average ticket price at $25, it's 250 grand.
That's math.
Okay? But think about what that means in terms of player salaries relative to that in this league. It's a decent chunk of money. Okay? Now, is it critical that maybe you don't host a playoff game? Maybe well not. And a well-budgeted team wouldn't have it be critical that you host playoff games. However, it does make a difference. It really does make a difference. If you can host a playoff game, if you can reap in the rewards of that. And this team right now could be about to go for a 3rd successive season whereby they don't do so. It could be the only 1 in 4 seasons. RGV back in 2021, where Rising lost on penalties in that game. That's the reality of things.
It is.
Okay. And so again,
it is.
It's fine. They're still pushing for it this season.
Yeah.
But you can't find yourselves in this position every season. And now this is the 3rd straight season you've found yourself in this kind of, can we get a late push kind of position?
He did note then that's how he closed out the
interview. We're bringing this one up.
October 26th, we play at Louisville, right? Comparing kind of like the Rising teams of old to, right? He was kind of playing out the hypothetical.
He was asked about how is this Louisville compared to 2019 Rising.
Right, they were kind of playing out the hypothetical of what that looks like, and it got into October 26th, we play at Louisville. Let's hope that means it's our final test before the playoffs, and you never know once you get in the playoffs. Maybe we can finish the regular season in Louisville and the postseason in Louisville.
I remember when Phoenix Rising went to the Summer Showcase in 2022, and that same kind of quote was doing the rounds, okay? And it was being fed out via Devon Kerr again, in this case, that, we're going to come here, we're going to win here, and then we're going to come here in the playoffs, and we're going to win here again then. And they didn't make the playoffs that year. Look, it's and going to unpack there with the back to the hope we get hot strategy. Look, every team that does well in this league ultimately will get hot at some point. But yeah, it's a reliant right now on a late push.
It's a lot of margins are thin.
Get
Margins
them over
thin.
the line.
Yeah.
And even to get into the playoffs at this point, it's reliant on a late push. And with fine margins, I don't know. Maybe.
It's very possible.
It's possible because it's so tight that it's entirely possible that you get in. I would very much be surprised if this team was to go on a run. It would make them capable.
It seems different than last season. Again, last year you saw the glimpse and everything. And we're not going to, right? We've talked about this ad nauseum. But again, I think it goes back to your point of that. Yes, you could get hot. Yes, you could win. Yes, you can play the final in Louisville. But again, there's bigger aspirations than that. And even though, again, you heard former Phoenix Rising head coach Owain saying, hey, listen, we won it all last year, but our goal this year is to finish top 4, host a playoff match. Even if he's no longer here, that should be the standard for this club. And if not in the top 4, at the very least, legitimately challenging. And it's just been a while since we've seen that.
10 points back on the top 4 at the minute. I know they got some games in
possible,
hand.
Sure.
They got some games in hand.
Sure.
But it's possible, but it's not likely. It's also worth noting. I mean, we'll get into around the USL later on, so I'll leave that one for later. But
yeah, well, I guess we'll look
at that. Was a little look through. If you haven't caught the full interview, of course, it's I believe USL normally posts these in full over on YouTube tomorrow. So it will be available for you to go out and listen. USL do post these.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be behind a paywall forever. You will be able to get access to that interview that was conducted.
You sure will.
I mean, it's a lot of things mostly that we've heard before. There are some little nuggets in there that are new, but it's still worth going and give it a listen again if you want that. And of course, we know that there will also be, as the club announced today, a Q&A coming up with Joe Lowry, who was in our chat earlier today. He'll be moderating that one. The club will be doing that ahead of the FC Tulsa game, and that'll be with Bobby Dulle, Brandon McCarthy, the sporting director, and an as yet to be named player.
Boom. Well, yes, and on the other side of the break, we will go around the USL. And all the
After we've now broken down that
all the wonder
with,
that it has,
as Mike Watts said, the hardest working man in the sport.
That is correct. But, before we go on the other side of the break, got to tell you about our friends over at Valley Tap Room. Valley Tap Room, with their 2 locations in Gilbert and Queen Creek. It is a phenomenal place to get a beer, catch a game. Owen, what do we do for those who, might be tuning in and just can't remember? What happens at the Gilbert location?
To see Spain save football.
And what happened?
They saved football.
Oh, love that.
They saved football.
Love that. Absolutely. Yes. Check out our friends over at Valley Tap Room, Gilbert and Queen Creek locations. Gilbert, a little bit more intimate. Queen Creek, a little bit bigger, a little more space out there over in Queen Creek. Check them out. Again, my man Donald, hook you guys up. Good beers are flowing, the wine slushes, the trivia nights, everything like that. Check them out over at Valley Tap Room on socials and online at valleytaproom.com.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. Lots of beers. So many different types of beer on the tap.
All the beers.
All of them. All kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Owen, you want to go take a little merry-go-round around the USL?
Do you want to do the scores, or what are we going to do?
Any of the high level for the people.
The high level. I think one of the ones that was interesting to me. Now, a lot of teams around Rising did drop points, but there are some that also did not do so. Orange County dropped points to El Paso. That's a really big one for El Paso to get. Monterey Bay losing to New Mexico. There's also a loss for Tulsa. They played Memphis. So again, those are teams that are right around in the mix there that realistically Rising does need to drop points. But one that was interesting to me was San Antonio winning 1-0 against North Carolina. Now we know there's talent in that San Antonio side. They have, of course, really underperformed this season. I think their talent is better than their performance. You could probably say the same about Rising, although again, there are different mitigating factors to that on multiple sides. But the reality is now that it means that should San Antonio win their game against Phoenix Rising, which will be here in the desert, coming up in the remainder of the schedule. Rising will have a game in hand against them, but would be 1 point back on them. So San Antonio are potentially back in play at this point. They were never that far away, okay? But we've had that discussion whereby we weren't sure whether they were maybe that little bit too far, maybe they weren't. I think they're very much back in the mixer now. That if they go on a little bit of a run here, they do have Sacramento this coming weekend, so that's not going to be an easy one to kind of establish the momentum in that sense. But it'll be interesting to see if they can go on a bit of a run here. There is a real chance that San Antonio could find themselves back in the mixer and back competing for a playoff position, and that only makes things that little bit harder again on Phoenix Rising, because it's just another team in the mix that you've got to somehow hope that in a combination of you getting the results that you need and other people dropping points as well as you go through. Again, Rising has some difficult games on the road in particular, so you're going to need some help at different times. You do also have a good number of 6-pointers of your own accord as well in there. So we will see how it goes. But I think, San Antonio with their win, probably starting to pull themselves back up into a position where you could say they're at the bottom of the competing teams, but they're not out of it. And I wouldn't rule them out of it yet. El Paso, I think, are gone. 5 points behind. They've played 2 games more than Phoenix Rising. They're 5 points behind San Antonio. I should say they're 7 behind Rising and have played 2 games more. They are currently 8 points back on the playoffs with no games in hand for either team there. I think El Paso are probably a little bit too far gone, but San Antonio, I think, still have a shot.
Yeah.
In fact, again, San Antonio are 3 points behind the playoff line right now with a game in hand. Okay? They're in the mixer.
In the mixer.
They're in the mixer.
Put it in the mixer. I mean, again, listen, anyone can get hot. That's what we say.
Mm-hmm. We shout out the USL Super League as well.
Yes, we can. Yes, we shall.
USL Super League kicking off play. First game there, 1-0 win for Carolina Ascent. 10,000.
I think the best
in
crest
that
in the
stadium.
Best crest.
I quite like Tampa Bay Sun.
That's fair.
But I see where you're coming from.
I like the colors.
I think
I'm a sucker for an orange purple.
That's fair enough.
Little
it's
orange
a very
sunset, baby.
Very sunset kind of look to them.
It ain't no Arizona sunset, but you know what I mean.
No, I know. So Carolina Ascent get off. The first ever goal scored by Vicky Bruce. All 3 games this past weekend were sellouts. Carolina Ascent with over 10,000 packed into that little stadium that Charlotte Independence normally play in, and I've been there. It was nowhere near sold out when I went there with Phoenix Rising and Charlotte Independence, who just used to get and still get pretty terrible crowds. Spokane Zephyr with 5,000 there against Fort Lauderdale and in a 1-1 draw. And Tampa Bay Sun debuting their new little stadium there that holds about 5,000 as well. Bang. They played Dallas Trinity, that game also ending in a 1-1 draw. Still a couple of clubs that haven't yet to make their debut, their first game. Lexington SC will get kicking off next, coming up on this coming weekend on what will be a Sunday morning kickoff here. They're going away to Carolina Ascent, and shout out the fact that they do indeed have a former ASU player on that Lexington team.
Let's go.
Which is interesting there.
Go Devils.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Get out the PH Hucks locker, baby. Let's go.
And an Arizona native in that as well, in Corey Sullivan. So, yeah, she played here at ASU. She's from Arizona. So, again, there's that. And there may be another ASU connection coming down the line. This one hasn't been made official right yet, and we're not going to break that news this time.
You have news to break?
No, we're not going to break news. When I'm not playing Super League Fabrizio. We're not doing that. I'm also not going to launder anyone's reputation, but we'll leave that one by the by. We're going to bring Fabrizio up.
Dear, I didn't bring him up.
I know. I said we.
There's no we. It's you. I was you.
No. But
yes.
Yeah, so there we go. There's a pair of games there again. Tampa Bay Sun will play DC Power. Carolina Ascent hosting Lexington SC. And again, the team that hasn't yet made its debut besides Lexington is Brooklyn FC, who will be playing at the end of the month on the 31st.
Yeah.
Brooklyn FC, of course, will have a men's team in USL Championship next season.
Yeah,
I know. I know, of course, that there's a hope here that Brooklyn FC Rising will have them away, because I do know that our esteemed hot dog helper is hoping, these guys are based over in Coney Island, and we're not going to name any particular brand, but of course I do know that our esteemed hot dog helper is incredibly keen to find himself eating hot dogs in Coney Island.
He'll just guzzle him down that gullet of his.
Big fan of the Glizzies.
Yeah, the Glizzy Gullet Gobbler.
Hot dog helper, everyone. Yeah, thank you to Stat Lucky Reese, hot dog helper.
He's doing so great. Yes, need to be the weekend of the 4th of July. Yeah, buddy. Oh my God. What would your 3-word slogan be if you were the USL Fabrizio? Drop in the chat. Drop in the chat, and drop in Discord as well. We'll have some fun with that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, also, Owen, what's your thoughts on celebrities buying in USL clubs and of the like?
Why?
I forget which one. Was it Jack Harlow? It was Louisville. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of celebrities involved in DC Power FC as well. Yeah, there are actually quite a few that have.
What's your thoughts? Do you like the celebrity owners? Do you think it's just a ploy? Think they care?
I don't think it's a problem.
I mean,
Rising has celebrity owners. You're not going to be a celebrity owner, Max. I'm sorry.
Damn.
I love you, mate, but no.
I will not thank you my acceptance speech later in life.
Thank you very much. It's fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, actually, DC Power have a few people there from multiple different sports that are bought in.
There you go.
NHL,
Angel Reese,
MLB, WNBA. Yeah.
Boom.
Rising, of course. Didier Drogba, Diplo.
I've heard of them.
And more. Pete Wentz.
Yeah.
This
Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Bang. Well, cool.
So I don't see it being a harm.
I have not seen the remake, but I will say the original is phenomenal.
I'm going to say this now. We had this whole discussion earlier in this show of like club direction-y stuff again, right? Which is obviously a divisive topic. It's one that we ideally wouldn't be bringing up as much as we are at the moment, but it happens. This is where the club is right now. Those conversations are going to happen. I don't think Goldingman Pat swore in the comments then, but the minute you bring Jack Harlow up, this man is in there swearing in the chat.
I don't have to tell you, man. Listen, it was a throwaway. Here we go.
There we go.
Oh, boy. Well,
Drogba more known around the world. Yeah, Kevin, you are correct.
That's fair. Well, appreciate everyone joining us here over on the PHNX Rising. Oh, wait, that's a good one.
No.
Reese, I like when celebrities take over a small team in North Wales and carry them to the Premier League. Of course, you're talking about
League One at minute, isn't there? League One.
Wrexham. You need to call her a Derek and tell him to get off the show and come over to the PHNX Wrexham podcast.
No.
You can leave. You have free will.
No, you don't do it, Reese.
You have free will.
Reese isn't doing it right now.
Yes, but appreciate everyone joining us here on the PHNX Rising podcast.
Right, I'm just gonna.
Of course, you can follow us at PHNX_Rising because double the underscore.
Double the Landon comments because we got Devon now hopping in with Landon Donovan gets a coach today in his first game. Yeah, shout out Landon Donovan, that really well qualified head coach, I think, who's gonna do. I mean, rumor has it maybe they'll bring Wayne Rooney in next. I mean, they could.
You can follow me on Twitter at Max David Simpson. You can follow the Oracle on Twitter at OJEvans18. You can follow Stylacky Reese, the hot dog helper himself, the Glizzy Gullet Guzzler at Reese11_. You can follow Kyle behind the Mac, pushing the buttons, lobbing those gummy worms, and he will improve for Thursday. I can assure you of that at K-Coop Sports. Again, join us on Thursday. You know, we do our usual deep dive preview, 6 p.m. I would say sharp, but you know how we roll. But it's a beautiful game, but it's way more beautiful when this team gets on track and does some good stuff.
Let's see. There's a game this weekend. We'll be talking about it on Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.